Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today. As I was sitting in the silence before everyone came in with you in the waiting room, I was resting in this exquisiteness of the purity of our hearts, and just resting in that clarity and expanse, and that quality of that refined, pure heart. So I'd like to be just quiet for another moment and see what our direction is for our time together today. Well, let's just start in each of you opening into this truth in yourself. And maybe you're doing this already. So we spent our time last class going through a series of just profound levels of clearing through the multidimensional bodies. And as we continue to clear, we open more fully to the fundamental nature of our being. And this gorgeous quality of heart that I'm describing is our fundamental nature. It's a fundamental, it's a foundation of your heart. And I'd like to invite us to come back to this attention resting with your heart, and opening both through the core flow and through the radiance of the heart. And it's also possible to open through those simultaneously. Another option is opening where they collapse into each other in oneness, where the core flow and the radiance of your heart, opening through that vertical ray of God, goddess, source consciousness, where that seemingly vertical ray and the radiant expanse in all directions collapse into each other into single embodied presence. And so to begin in simplicity, this anatomy that I'm describing may be useful for some and may be a distraction for others. So trust your experience and allow yourself to come into the felt sense, the felt purity of your heart, purity of your being. I'm just laughing in the it's like just the pure joy. It's a pure joy and innocence of what we all are, and there's so many layers of story. As we, I don't know, try and like elbow our way to the front, or work on strategies to make ourselves whole, or I don't know, it's just there's just humor coming through in all the inner compensation patterns that arise from the idea of lack or amnesia of wholeness and oneness, and the amnesia of the light and love that you innately are. So we're just coming into the heart, just offering some clearing support, smoothing out the rough edges, just to help support each of you feeling more fully into your pure presence of being. Oh, it's just a delight, just tickling the divine funny bone, just clearing out the clouds of illusion. Let yourself just keep dropping into the stillness and the silence. Trusting the process, even if your attention is still with your kind of common everyday awareness, to not worry about that. Just trusting the process, allowing the layers to gently be released, knowing that you are supported, trusting the process. Allowing yourself to soften and rest more deeply in, like settling more deeply into a soft couch, like settling deeper into yourself. So what is happening now collectively in the soul classroom is there is a clarity of the alignment through your spine, and for some of you in through the upper multidimensional bodies. So each of us in our own timing, without stress on the system, each of us is coming into this inner flow of alignment. And there's a preparation of organizing where the consciousness begins to prepare the preparations in the field for organizing the next layer of grounding. And now I'd like each of you to, in your own timing, take in a gentle, easy, full breath, full inhale. And in the exhale, exhaling light, where there's not a doing, it's just a natural movement. That in the exhale, light flows through your field. In all directions, like a sphere around you. And that sphere can be a few feet around your body. It can be millennia around your body. You can allow yourself to just feel the infiniteness of light. And again, inhale, and then on the exhale, and that release flows through. And flows all the way through the physical body, grounding you in light. You can allow yourself to be in your inner unfolding, inviting the light to continue to ground through every cell in your body. Allowing that light to inform each cell. Allowing yourself to settle more deeply as you both give and receive. As your higher aspects shine and illuminate and flow through, giving you and your humanness receive, or you're giving and receiving simultaneously in this light exchange, allowing the light to continue to flow through your cells, supporting the continual grounding, the grounding of light as your embodiment. And if it feels right for you, I'd like you to invite a releasing through each of these cells. Invite a releasing of the old identity of yourself that has been orchestrating through filters of conditioning, orchestrating your life. So it can feel like a familiar personality is being invited to be released out through the core of each cell And as you continue to rest in the purity and the light of yourself, identity can begin to rest in that frequency of yourself, which makes it a more fluid release, an easier release of the personalized conditioning. The way I'm seeing this right now in the cells is almost like I'm seeing it as a wave, frequency, and the more than one thought pattern or emotion can release at a time. Whole patterns can release, or whole aspects of patterns. So I encourage you to just really rest in that light love field in yourself and allow yourself to perhaps feel the releasing simply as a sensation, like you might feel water dripping off after a shower or after coming out of the ocean or a pool. Only the releasing is happening, that fluid, liquid releasing is happening through the inside of the cell, releasing out as light continues to fill in, allowing the conditioning that the cells have been recognizing as you, right? The cells have been doing their job. There's an invitation for them to update to the more pure you. So this is not about the mind trying to make sense of this or find the new you. This is about resting in love and light and the depth of your presence. And engaging in a releasing process that's being supported through the soul classroom, through the layers of your being, and from the layers of your being. So beautiful. As we do this, more of you are coming into a subtle recognition of the octaves of yourself, supporting the harmonizing between them, like a sound of a chord, you know, in an instrument, and you play all these notes at the same time and it makes a harmony. We're going to continue with this process. We're now moving into another layer, a deeper blueprint of conditioning, which is still conditioning, but it's a deeper aspect of it. You can continue to just rest in the light, allowing the releasing, being present in the process, not judging it as good or bad, not judging your experience, just allowing, letting yourself be taken care of. by your higher self, by your infinite wisdom. So we're moving into this deeper location of conditioning through the nervous system and the hard wiring of the brain. Where your conditioning has more of an instinctual nature to it, where you believe that thought so much that if you start to feel frightened by something, you respond with that pattern. Where you orient the security of your life around these conditioned ideas. So we're not going to necessarily go into the details of those. We're going right in through to the anatomy of the more concentrated patterning through the nervous system. And I'm seeing this through the spine. And I'd like to invite each of you to support your process by continuing to rest in that light. I'm filled with so much love and compassion for the sincerity of our strategies. So much love, so much effort, so much care. And yet there's an opportunity in the acknowledgement of that to love that and let that let go, to allow a greater truth of yourself to come through. We'll be doing this for a little while now at this depth. The It's just a love and care and tenderness supporting the release at this depth of your being. Just letting the light in, letting the light in, letting the light in. In some cases, we've held so tightly, protecting ourselves from the wounding, that the tightly holding is actually what keeps the light from coming in. And so we're asked in the preciousness of our self-care to shift that movement of holding in self-care to letting go in self-care, to let go and allow the light as we continue to move through this profound purification process. The old patterns release, and there's open, fertile ground, resting in the stillness and the silence and the light. Nourishes that fertile ground. Allow yourself to rest in that stillness, almost like a empty canvas. To rest in the beauty from having weeded your garden so deeply. And before planting flowers, or before planting anything or painting, let yourself rest in this inner reset, resting in the simple purity of being and that open, rich, clear ground. To allow the depth of your transformation to reach even more refined scales. And awareness rests in the emptiness and the stillness, while the message reverberates more deeply to reset and realign to a deeper, even more brilliant truth of yourself. There's an invitation to rest in your atomic nature. allowing this level of refinement to reset. Allowing the shifting into greater illumination. It's now time for the atomic aspects of your being, the atomic consciousness, to fully reflect the light and the purity of your soul. And your divine essence. And so in this moment, we honor the passing of the old, inviting in the new potency, vibrancy, life force of illumination, of illuminated truth and being and love and radiance, and the power that brings forth. Simply by being, and by being that divine nature. You can take another few deep breaths, inhaling the light, exhaling light, allowing the atoms to rejuvenate themselves in the exquisite light of your being. Feeling the incredible life force that you are. And that you are in your humanness as a host of so many amazing golden atomic light beings. Inseparable from you. Just allowing yourself to deeply rest in this community of life force. Allowing each of your atoms to upgrade, coming into a higher frequency of joy, love, and light. We are each so beautiful. Just the stunning flowers of bloom, unique patterns, kaleidoscopically unfolding. Unfolding, releasing, updating, illuminating. And the fragrance of your bloom becomes sweeter, more fragrant. And old stories are digested to satisfaction and completion, and digested back into wholeness. Now we're dipping into another pocket of story that wants to be illuminated. And there's so much light here that the transformation has become easy. Allowing yourself to continue to rest in light as light. as we continue to open and expand and illuminate ourselves. Allow yourself to rest in that light and the light that is in between each of the atoms, the light that is in between each of the cells. So you are resting in your individuated wholeness at the same time as resting in the oneness. Purifying the atoms and also the space in between, allowing the connectivity between all parts to also be illuminated, love, light, and truth. Inviting the infinite, expansive wisdom in through the layers and in through in between. Inviting another layer, another level of purity, radiance, divine consciousness. And gently resting in the transformation. Allowing the organization, allowing the newness. Inviting the love and light to continually saturate. Allowing the subconscious to update. Allowing dreamscape softness to update, to open to the new levels of illumination. Allowing the throat and the heart to come into the full resonance of this newly discovered and remembered frequency and purity. allowing the thymus to receive and take in the new information, the new immune system. Old stories can create fear and a sense of needing to protect. And in the new light, infusion of yourself, the thymus and the immune system can see things differently. And the environment is perceived differently as opposed to a field of threatening people or personalities or circumstance, as opposed to a field of threatening environments. Your radiation, you're radiating, the radiance of your light illuminates all that you see, and perceptions change, the world changes, and life is not perceived as a threat. Life is a joy. And so the thymus begins discovering the new perception, and the autonomic nervous system can relax as you recognize you are whole and you are love. We are gently going through different biological, neurological systems and structures to continually support your self-remembrance and your upgrading your experience of yourself and of life. We won't be able to go through each of these systems in enormous detail today. This will be done throughout the course of the program. But we begin with a gentle hint, gentle I'm forgetting the word. I think it starts with P. when you get a little bit, a hint of the ending of the story in the beginning. Pre something. So we're just sharing a little bit of that for the next series of classes in our time together in this round. This feels like a beautiful, very full body of work, body of shifting and illumination that has occurred today. It will continue throughout the rest of our session today. But this feels like enough for the moment to then shift and open for questions or sharing. As all of this continues to settle in, saturate, integrate, ground, as your conscious mind slowly reflects the changes and begins to recognize what has been released. You may notice throughout your week recognition of old patterns that used to be there that aren't any longer, or recognition of patterns that don't feel as tightly gripping as they used to, and there's more space, more light, more atomic harmony and resonance in through the substance of your conditioning. And so it doesn't feel as thick or as contracted, and that the spaciousness has invited in light and sparkles and rainbows, which come in between the particles of the, I don't know what word to use, the particles of cohesion that pull together storylines that create density. As this light and sparkles and the light comes through in between, it creates more spaciousness. The density begins to expand, and the truth of your light and love and laughter can come in through those contracted fields, dancing and bouncing in between the particles of distress and storyline, opening up the fabric of your consciousness to weave new stories of love and life and delight. And so we, all that are here, invite you to open into this divine enlightenment, divine illumination in between all the particles of your stories, in between where there is space and wholeness and oneness and infiniteness that is remembered by you as the totality. And that you are beginning to remember through our time together, and beginning to remember in your own divinity. Allow yourself to enjoy this moment and the following moments, to enjoy this moment and through your next days. Enjoy this expansion and this love that has penetrated and saturated deeper than before in through your human field. Allow yourself to receive and remember, for this exquisiteness is, language falls apart. This exquisiteness is time. This exquisiteness is this timing, this now, this time, this moment, this exquisiteness is not separate. This exquisiteness is language falls apart in the nowness of this. In the attempt to put it into a linear fashion, it loses the meaning of what is actually intended. And so rest in the nowness of this time here, recognizing the timeliness of the exquisiteness is now. The exquisiteness is blooming now. The readiness is now. Your exquisiteness is now. Allow this fabric of time that seems linear or has been, allow this fabric of time to unweave and open into the nowness of your infinite exquisiteness outside of time and space that is your always now. Resting in the infinity here, the infinity of here, the infinity of here-ness, of now. As the illusion and construct of time and space begins to break apart in the weave between your atoms, you discover the power and the exquisiteness of yourself as a creator, as a creation, as a creator being, as the creation of your creations. Free from time and space, you can rectify your purity here now, transforming the fabric of your being into the illuminated truth of enlightened love and being, right here now, in your infiniteness now, here as you are, right here now. Feel the potency and power of the love and light that you are. Allow this to transform all aspects of your creative now. Coming into the totality of your being. And your divine, unique expression. Of the oneness we are. And so here, the nervous system has reset, is resetting, resting in the beauty and the magnificence. The system touches the deeper truth of itself, recognizes itself more deeply, and the mind becomes still, and the deep reset of self-recognition beyond where consciousness had realized itself. And so we rest here in the silence together, in the magnificence and the illumination and stillness and love. And the bodies reset, adjust, realign. Recreate. Surrendering into the deeper oneness that you always are. As you play hide and seek with yourself, calling yourself exquisitely home, deeper and deeper into self-remembrance. I'd like to take a few minutes to allow you to either continue to rest in silence, stretch, go to the bathroom, have a drink of water, whatever feels best to you. We'll just take a few minutes. And this is not to disrupt your space. And this is to allow you to softly continue to integrate and nourish. Thank you for joining me and co-collaborating in such an exquisite journey together. Thank you. And I am open and happy to hear from anyone whose heart calls to share. So if and when you're moved to share, feel free to unmute yourself.
So Kristin,
Hi there.
hello. Just curious on your perspective or feedback. My sense is it's like consciousness has gotten like wrapped around, invested in the psyche, invested in the nervous system, invested in even down to this atomic level. And so, this process seems like remembering or having the experience of the liquid nature of consciousness, just like unfolding, the gripping, of each of these levels.
Was that a question or you're just describing? I'm assuming.
Just describing and curious
Yeah, okay.
if that aligns with your perspective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the liquid aspect is a particular dimensional frequency where you can feel that liquid light, where it feels like a sacred God liquid, honey-like, I don't know, like this, it's substance, but it's ambrosia, it's consciousness, right? Where things have that liquid aspect. And so that's one, my experience is that's one aspect or one way, I want to say dimensional, but I mean, I'm only sharing from, I haven't seen from every angle of direction, right? So that fluidity, that liquid light, I experience in a particular dimension of embodiment. And then when I'm opening as the particles or atoms or subatomic, there's different kind of kinesthetic or a different felt sense of each of those different realms, but we're the whole thing. So the way I'm just hearing you describe is just with a greater level of refinement of detail, which is more than most people feel. No one needs to feel that to come into, it's not something to seek, you know, for those that aren't experiencing that. We're all let me be quiet for a minute. It's like the flower can rest in its fragrance and the beauty of itself without also resting in all the cells and the atoms and the minerals that make it, right? So some people are designed to see this level of detail, and others are, it's not their purpose this lifetime, it's something else. So I just want to say that for everyone, because you're speaking to a level of refinement that I'm familiar with, but a lot of people aren't. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just to kind of like be really clear about that. And my experience has been with the conditioning, as you're saying, that the conditioning, as one continues to surrender through these deeper and deeper layers, I have found the conditioning persists, right? You just keep finding these ways in which consciousness has been contorting itself in a way, but also exploring itself. You know, it's like, all right, what happens if you put it together this way? What happens if you put it together that way? So, and for myself, in terms of the way that I'm kind of put together, when these realizations happen at that depth and subtlety, then that depth of transformational capacity can be amplified through the field for each of you to recognize that in yourself, either consciously or in the deeper layers, to begin this clearing in through yourself at that level of refinement. So the conditioning can clear on a certain level, and now we want to clear it at the next level and the next level to come into this greater and greater refinement of purity. That's what seems to be happening here for me, and in my work, and in the shifting that's happening for those that are working with me. That's what it seems to be happening, that we're doing, you know, that we're coming into this greater and greater refinement. And for some people, there's a greater awareness of these details that comes forward. And for others, it's different, like the details aren't present. It's a more of a felt sense of expanding and grounding and feeling lighter and more spacious and more love, and then witnessing how one's life begins to change as a result of these inner changes that seem to be mysterious and not so visible. So there's no one right way for a flower to bloom, right? So was there something else that was specific in your sharing, or that you wanted me to speak more about?
You know, there's just one more piece, which is one way I experience this attachment, or, you know, the binding, is it's like a phase shift. So if like, I could think about it at a lot of levels, like psychologically, it might be dissociation, you know, dissociation from the body, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And anyway, so there's this, like, the vibration, as I tune into the vibration, it's like there's an alignment that happens, like this phase shift, like these things that were a little bit out of phase come into alignment. And that seems to be like one way that it's opening to deeper and deeper levels. And like and that alignment actually opens up a higher frequency which again has its own vibration, and tune into that. And then that comes into alignment. And so it's just like this parting experience.
So I'll add a little dovetail to that. There's a little gecko that is climbing around the camera. And at some point he or she might walk across the lens. So just giving you a heads up in case it suddenly looks like an enormous lizard has like entered our reality. There's this very cute little baby gecko that's just on there. So in case I don't notice, to give you the warning that that's what's happening. If it happens. So there's multiple ways. Sorry, he just jumped off onto the wall. So it's like, so there's multiple ways we can, our sensory system can perceive this stuff. So it seems like there's a similarity between the way your system is perceiving and mine. So I'll just share other components, which can also then be pathways for other people to surrender through in their own inner process. So the way you're describing the out of phase and in phase, right, is speaking about frequency and harmonizing. And when you're naming these two different components, it would suggest to me that you are resting in a deeper frequency than either of those to be able to recognize two aspects of frequency coming into harmonizing with each other. And for that to happen, there has to be attention somewhere at a deeper frequency than those two, which is where the organizing principle is arising from, that is orchestrating those two aspects coming into a harmonizing phase. When I'm describing surrendering in deeper than where something is arising from, to surrender back deeper into yourself, I'm describing something similar to what we're talking about, where consciousness has become still enough, where it's resting in the stillness, where it can then feel those frequencies coming into alignment. And it's from that stillness, it is from the depth of that stillness that the tuning, the deeper precision of the frequency is arising from, to bring these layers that are in front of you that you can see and feel and recognize, in having those come into, they're coming into alignment with each other, but they're also coming into alignment with this deeper truth, which is why you are then describing that alignment happens and then things open up into something deeper. So we're speaking about a similar process from the way our sensory system is experiencing it, to be able to describe it. And there are a myriad of ways to describe this. It also could be that one is resting in a stillness, and light just keeps expanding and expanding and expanding, and the heart just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and you feel like you're as big as multiple universes, and you're just resting in bliss. that's the same thing, right? It's just being experienced from another resting place and conscious, another way of perceiving, right? So for me, if I'm resting in the heart, I may have more of just the embodied expansion experience. And then if awareness or the mind comes in alignment in that union, then I may start seeing all the details, that we've been describing. They're usually together for me. They're usually not separate. But just to offer another example, right? You can be in that exquisite stillness and expansion and delight, and you're right in step with what's happening in the class, in perfect presence, in that those words are kind of funny, perfect presence. What I mean is that you're in harmony with what's happening in the class. You're right in the exact same phase of expansion. It's just being an experience in a different way. So again, just to really impress upon everyone that there's one way is not more evolved. One way is not better than another. And that resting in our own authenticity is what's primary, because that's where the truth is, right? Coming into that wholeness of how is the one singular totality that you are, that we all are, how is that experiencing as you, in you?
Yeah, thank you. Very helpful.
Great. I want to add one other thing to that. Which is about for me, the sensation of identity letting go. People describe it like that, going through the eye of the needle. And there's all this beautiful experience and multiplicity and the frequencies and the harmonies and the atoms and the cells and like all these parts. And the aspect of ourself that can perceive that is the part that is what is surrendering backwards, deeper into oneself. It's a very specific, for me, very specific kinesthetic feeling of surrendering back in deeper than where I can see. The seeing is happening, the seeing is looking out from a resting place of consciousness. And so the surrendering back is allowing awareness to come back to the origin of the seer, of the seeing itself, and surrendering identity in through that which you can't see because you're using a particular lens to see what you're looking at. So it's a surrendering back in through. And for me, that's when then in that surrendering through, and there's a sense of no existence, no perceiver, no perception. And that because the lens of perception is having to let go of itself to surrender back through itself to open up to another larger one. But when we do that, that's when we open up into these larger aspects of ourself that are more encompassing than the one that we were previously perceiving from. And when there's layers of ourself that we have experienced before, that we're more familiar with, you can start to have that fluid sense of, yeah, in my day-to-day, I'm functioning here, and then in a quick meditation, I'm functioning here, and then in a deeper meditation, I'm functioning here. So it may be that there are sort of 3 octaves that one is fluidly within that are familiar. And so one can move through those layers. And then once we're ready and we've integrated whatever wants to integrate before the next depth appears, the next deeper octave, when we're have integrated through that, and then we're surrendering, then my experience is it's always that same feeling of having to let go of everything that is known and dropping into a deeper surrender point. And then the whole thing happens again. And then another larger, more expansive layer appears. So like opening as the particles of the universe. I've described this before, I'll just share it again. So when I was opening through smaller layers, I hadn't opened to experiencing myself as the universe and as particles. And there was a fear of exploding, that I would explode if I surrendered. But when there was finally the willingness to have the sensation of exploding, in that surrendering, I didn't actually explode, but I opened up and then was experiencing myself literally as all the particles of the universe. So it makes sense, the previous sense of self, that containment, was feeling stressed that it was not going to do its job of holding me together, that I was going to explode. But in that new level, then it becomes familiar. And then resting as all those particles of the universe, it becomes more comfortable place of embodiment. And then the next layer then wants to happen. So, so we can have, we're a sensory apparatus on all these layers. So we get to have these sensations, whatever they are, in through the whole journey. So I just wanted to give a little more detail of those sensations and the surrendering, because it can be not your instinct. cannot be the first instinct to go backwards in that way and surrender into the unknown. So thank you so much for your sharing. Does anyone else have yeah, thank you. Yeah, oh, lovely to have you back in class. Total delight. So does anyone else have anything that their heart is calling to share?
I've got a question.
Yeah. Hi there.
Hey, yeah, I feel more like a butterfly soup or something, you know. Yeah, and it's like it's just this big amorphous feeling inside my body, but it feels good, and it's so. I had a question for you. When we're meditating with you, and are you describing what is happening, or are you commanding it to happen?
So I want to respond to your butterfly soup first, and then I'll respond to that. So my guess of what is happening for you, the way I would describe that sensation for myself when I'm feeling that, is that all those layers have harmonized, and there's a transformation happening, and you can feel all those layers at the same time. Like when I was speaking about giving and receiving, like shining your wisdom and your light from a higher self onto your humanness for your humanness to receive. But when you're resting as both, or all of it together, the giving and the receiving is one. It's one thing. And you can experience it in the oneness of that. And the butterfly soup, the way I would interpret that sensation that I'm hearing you describe, the way I feel that is when the mind, what's useful is for the mind to, and I'm saying this for everyone, not because I think your mind is getting in the way, I don't think it is, but that for the mind to just rest and allow oneself to be that transformative soup. And it can feel really good in the resting in that, because everything is then going through that harmonizing, or what Jeff was describing, right? Of these places that have been out of phase coming into phase. And then this transformation starts happening while things are in that harmonizing phase. And so that butterfly soup is where the layers are in this just amazing transformation happening. And soup is a great word, right? I see it as all these little light particles, or like confetti, or all the little, it's like when consciousness and this really small scale, and then it's all changing. It's all changing, and lights the little mirrors are flipping. It's this amazing rainbow light transformation that's happening, and that it just continues until it's done. And if the mind doesn't worry about it and doesn't have to understand it, and you're comfortable just resting as that, it's this beautiful, comfortable, transformational process that just then is doing it on its own. And it's gorgeous. So thank you so much for that description. And let me be quiet for a moment before responding to your question. Was there anything you wanted to add to my butterfly soup sharing?
Not right off, no.
Okay. It's not commanding. It's more like if Beethoven was playing one of his pieces, in a large arena, a large cathedral, and playing in the power of his mastery. And so the if there was a loud parts of the piece being played, and you're in that frequency of that sound, that truth, that power, that love, that wisdom moves through you and realigns you. So it's not a command. It's a aligned co-creation. Because as you rest in that cathedral with Beethoven playing, you chose to be there. And in the moment of that frequency moving through, you also choose to align with it, or surrender through the movement of that sound through you, such that your whole system realigns because of the mastery that was sounded in that piano playing. So it's more like that.
It's more like an improvising conductor, then, you might say.
Well, Beethoven's not conducting. He's playing.
Oh, when he's playing a piece. Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And each of us are orchestrated differently. Right? So some people play their song and they build bridges. I suddenly want to cry. And sometimes they're school teachers. Right? So we each sing our own goddess song. And we sing in different ways. When I'm dancing or swimming with turtles, I'm singing in a different way than the singing that happens in these gatherings. And so we each have our song, and we get to sing our song in different ways. And the core theme of my service singing is this. When I'm in the soul classroom, I can be functioning from different octaves, and I'll see differently. My perception is different, so I'll see differently depending on which octave is for me to reside in at that moment of the session. And there are multiple beings that are all in service, co-creating and holding the space, supporting the transformation. So it's not just me. Maybe quiet for another minute. I feel like there's another piece to share. Maybe if I speak about the part I can see, the part I can't see will show up. I can't. I need to be quiet. Okay.
I had a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, we're just opening up to grace at your invitation. And I guess grace works in mysterious ways, you see.
Well, this is always true. But the same way that Beethoven had refined a skill set, there's also a refined skill set here.
Right.
But that level of refinement also arises from a deeper perspective. Let me take just another moment or two and see if what's trying to come forward will actually turn into words. Well, this might be the best I can do at the moment. What I'm feeling is it's like the power of transformation as it's like there's a recognition of that, where awareness is surrendered through itself. Being with the details. So it's like hitting a C note, having an understanding of you know, I'm just going to make this up. All right, I'm sorry. Let me try one more time, because my guide is now here, like trying to also help me see, because it's a beautiful question, right? Because people always ask about, are you doing something? Are you not doing something? Am I doing something? So, but there's something important about the refinement here in the response that wants to come forward, because it honors the individuation of each of you. And yet, if you go hang out with your best friend in grace, the things that happen here most likely probably won't happen when you hang out with your, best friend in grace. Something else beautiful will happen. But so there's just a wanting to refine this a little bit more. So in here, there's a deeper understanding of the power of the transforming and the resting in that. When I have reached a certain level of thank you. Okay, I got it. So when I have reached a certain level of self-realization through these layers, my transmissions, when I amplify that truth in myself, I am amplifying that aspect of consciousness with the self-realization together. And so then what gets amplified in the field is are those realms of being, whether it's the atoms or your core flow or your mind or your conditioning, your emotions, that I'm amplifying that same thing in myself is being amplified with the frequency of self-realization. So then what happens in the soul classroom is that those parts of yourself, all the layers of your being that I have realized through myself, those parts in yourself get to have the light increased, the illumination increased with the added frequency of self-realization. So then those frequencies in yourself, like the tuning fork, the C note tuning fork, C note here, then in the room with the other C note tuning fork, that makes that one start to vibrate because it's the same. So there are, our bodies are both one and different, right? So we have a blueprint of a human body. It's one blueprint, but different bodies. And it's one self-realization of individual beings getting to have their own journey through self-realization. And so by me resting in my uniqueness, simultaneously in the oneness of the parts that are the same, that are one, with the self-realization, that's then my Beethoven song resounding through the soul classroom. And because of the level of detail of understanding of the engineering of humanity, the architecture of consciousness, the architecture of humanness and souls and light bodies and universes, and along with all the help in the classroom, we're all coming together with great resources of personal individuated wisdom that has been polished, refined through experience, that all of us are coming together, bringing this to create a powerful container. So the wisdom from all of us then resonating in through the soul classroom, for each of you to then be in a highly amplified healing transformational field, for all the layers of your being to begin to resonate through a myriad of what word to use, of frequencies of healing and transformation through all the beings that come together. So we're all then amplifying many avenues of self-realization in through the field. And so each of your cells, particles, aspects of your consciousness, both in the contained sense of identity and in through the smaller particles that come together to make that identity, like just per body, your cells, your atoms. This is true on multiple layers of consciousness, of embodiment, that your emotional body has particles, your mental body has particles, right? The containment of you and the individual particles of each of those aspects of you comes into this resonance of being, of massive proportion of transformation, enlightenment, healing, and evolution, all in through the field at once. So that some of you are responding to some parts, some of you are responding to other parts, depending on what is most accessible to you, what can, and it's not just what's most accessible, it's both, yes, accessible both in what feels more palatable to you to receive, but also in your geometries, in your configuration, in your experience, in your history, that there are going to be certain resonances that are just going to be more naturally the key to flipping things open for your healing and for your transformation and for your awakening. So thank you again for your question. And for me, that response was worth the wait that took. And I can see why I needed to get more still, because it wasn't just a one-piece concept, right? I had to surrender back into the depth of the soul classroom from a deeper, more expanded dimensional body, to be able to see the whole thing, to then be able to speak to it. But what a fabulous thing to have brought forward. So thank you so much for your question. Is there more you wanted to say about that or respond or?
Mm. Um, I tend to bring it all down to one sentence or something, I guess, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just, I guess it's all our intention as coming into this class. And you're describing the process of the intentions.
Maybe intention means something different for different people. I think of intention as, yeah, it's like the depth of that intention, because intentions can be also on these different dimensional levels, right? Intention, one can come in with the intention of, I'd like to just receive as much as I can. And then it could be that there's a deeper block that resists that intention. It could be from that deeper soul level. One is then also in that intention, the soul's intention of coming, right? Or a higher, even higher level of consciousness having an intention in your coming. So so I would say yes on the soul level, because the mind may or may not have the scope of the intention, because there's so much that can shift, right? So yes, intention, and there are different depths of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome, right? And then we might wake up to these different layers of our intention in through the stillness, and so yeah, thank you again. Thank you again. Ooh, we're a little over time. Sorry about that. I get excited about these things. All right. I just feel like opening for one more. Is there one last piece before we finish, and then we'll close after that? And if there's not, then we'll just finish. Okay. So I think we'll, let me see if there's something for each of you to support your process. It feels like there is. Well, it feels almost like that butterfly soup, and also just giving yourself time to process, knowing that's what's happening, and this may continue for a few days. So to not be hard on yourself, not judge yourself, just give yourself a lot of spaciousness to keep allowing this to move forward, to moving itself forward and processing. So I think that's it. So drink plenty of water, get a lot of good sleep. That feels really helpful. So to not try and do that one extra thing before going to bed, or staying up late on the computer and getting all that computer light in your eyes, really give yourself some really nourishing sleep to support things continuing to integrate. So I think we'll end here, and because it's late, we can just end with a just mutual appreciation of each other, of everyone being here, and all the guides present, and all your beautiful questions. So thank you so much. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. And again, I have so much appreciation for all of us going to the depth that we did today. So thank you again. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. Lots of love and aloha. Mwah.